She leaned over the cake and said, "You're not family." Laughter tried to hide it. I lifted my glass, memorized faces, and said nothing. The next morning, I opened my safe, called my attorney, and rewired every promise with ink, steady hand, and witnesses. I kept the smile on anyway. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments from where you are watching this video. The ballroom lights were warm, the kind that flatter faces and hide nerves. Gold runners lined the tables, and the band tuned with careful restraint. I stood near the back, counting centerpieces, because counting calms me. Lily glided through the room, soft veil grazing her shoulders. Jason followed, practicing smiles that looked almost real. Servers slipped between chairs like practiced chess moves. I checked the schedule card tucked in my jacket pocket. Timeline is comfort, especially when families mix like solvents. I breathed slow and kept my face open, neutral, and available. Lily spotted me and crossed the floor with measured steps. "Dad, how's your table?" she asked, eyes bright and careful. "Everything's level," I said, tapping a charger to show balance. Jason joined, adjusting his cuff and avoiding my direct gaze. "We're good on speeches," he said, voice even but clipped. "Short and clean." I nodded once, because short is kind at weddings. "Proud of you both," I added, keeping it simple. Lily squeezed my hand, then released it quickly. "Enjoy the night," she whispered. I watched them move and wished the room were smaller. Brenda entered like a lead trumpet, bright and impossible to ignore. She wore navy silk and a smile that announced control. "Ethan," she said, offering air-kiss distance. "Lovely venue. Hotel did well," I replied, letting the compliment land elsewhere. She scanned the room like a floor manager before a live show. "Let's keep speeches upbeat," she said, tapping the program. "No heavy stories." "Understood," I answered, though she wasn't requesting permission. Jason drifted to her side, shoulders tightening without touching. Lily watched them and smoothed her skirt with steady hands. I checked my watch and waited for dinner. The salad course arrived, crisp and geometrically arranged. I ate slowly and kept my glass half full for the toasts. At the family table, Brenda rearranged place cards like mission pieces. "Photos after cake," she told the planner, "and move grandparents forward." The planner nodded politely and did none of it. My sister, Nora, leaned over and whispered, "She's running a broadcast." "Then we'll stay on frequency," I said, smiling lightly. Across the room, Jason laughed too loudly, then stopped. Lily lifted her water and took a small, deliberate sip. I logged the moment and returned to my salad. The MC tapped the microphone, and forks paused midair. "First, a few words from our families," he said warmly. Brenda stood before he finished the sentence. "Welcome, everyone," she began, voice polished by practice. "Tonight, we celebrate connection and tradition." Her eyes swept the room and avoided mine by habit. "Jason is the pride of our line," she said, coattailing the applause. She spoke in clean platitudes that slide easily across linen. People love words that sound like silk until they snag. She ended with a cue smile and passed the mic to the MC. My turn came second, because second looks respectful and safe. I stood, straightened my jacket, and set my napkin down. "To Lily and Jason," I began, keeping cadence steady. "May your decisions be quiet and your apologies fast." Light laughter rose, then settled. "May your home favor listening over volume," I added. I named 3 memories that belonged to Lily and left out grief. The room softened, because restraint carries weight when used well. I ended with a nod to both families and sat down. Brenda clapped first, tight and rhythmic, like closing a segment. Between courses, I made my rounds and thanked staff by name. Small respect keeps nights like this from fraying. The pastry chef described the cake layers with proud precision. "Almond sponge, raspberry preserve, Swiss meringue," she said. "Not too sweet." "Perfect," I replied, meaning it. Near the bar, Jason's college friends practiced toasts on napkins. "Keep it to 2 lines," I suggested kindly. "Trust me, brevity wins." They laughed, then crossed out half their jokes. I took water, not wine, and checked the room's corners. Weddings tell truths in corners before they reach the stage. Brenda's side gathered for a family photo against the floral wall. "Tighter, tighter," she directed, narrowing the frame with her hands. "Let's keep it immediate family for this one." Lily stepped in, smile soft but steady. "Dad," she called, "after this, okay?" "I'll be nearby," I said, giving space without stepping back. Jason hesitated, then followed Brenda's hand signals like light cues. A photographer hovered, patient and professional. I watched posture more than faces, because posture rarely lies. The band slid into a low standard, giving the room a cushion. I kept counting seconds to slow my pulse. The cake arrived under a small spotlight, simple and clean. The room shifted, drawn by frosting and tradition. The photographer signaled for the cut, then for laughter. Brenda hovered close, hand on Jason's shoulder, stage managing angles. Lily glanced at me, then nodded to the photographer's mark. "Ready?" Jason asked, and Lily answered, "Ready." The first slice lifted, and applause spread politely. A server steadied the plate, and the flash popped twice. I stayed still, letting the moment belong to them. The MC invited everyone who feels part of this family to the dance floor. Feet moved in streams, and the band raised the lights. Brenda guided poses like a choreographer on a tight timeline. "Quick couples, then parents," she told the lens, smiling wide. Nora nudged me gently. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm measuring," I said, "and staying useful." The photographer waved me in for a quick shot with Lily. "Dad," she said softly. 2 seconds. I stepped in, set my hand on her shoulder, and stepped out. Sometimes the kindest help is not taking space. At our table, I stacked place cards in perfect pairs. It kept my hands busy and my mind still. Lily and Jason circled, receiving congratulations and parked compliments. Brenda adjusted the cake knife for a final photo, then recentered napkins. I read the schedule again and moved the program 1 inch. Control eases a room only when it includes care. I kept care close and waited for the line I didn't know yet. Nights like this test whether people mean their polish. The room glowed, and the band smoothed another standard into the air. The DJ called for a tight circle, and bodies pressed toward the cake. The photographer crouched, counting beats with a lifted finger. 3, 2, 1, she said lightly. Laughter scattered as forks tapped plates and rings flashed. Brenda stepped closer, hands painting an invisible frame. "Let the young ones hold center," she announced. Her smile held, but her eyes measured territory. Lily reached for Jason's sleeve and held pose. I stayed a step behind, in the soft shadow of a column. Position tells truth when mouths try to hide it. Brenda angled Lily's shoulder for the lens and checked Jason's lapel. "Clean line, chin up," she said, tapping air like a metronome. The photographer shifted left, hunting symmetry across silk and flowers. "Parents next," the MC called, voice bright and professional. Brenda's hand rose like a gate arm. "1 second," she said, moving closer to Lily's ear. The band softened, and the room inhaled. I watched the pause, rather than the people. That's when she leaned, voice casual enough to pass for kindness. "You're not family," she said. "Let's keep this immediate." The sentence fit perfectly inside the spotlight. Silence rippled like water against polished glass. Lily blinked, then steadied herself with one breath. Jason's smile thinned, then reappeared like a trained cue. "Mom," he whispered, too soft for anyone but her. Brenda didn't answer. She watched the lens instead. The photographer heard tone but not words, and waited. Nora's hand brushed my sleeve, asking without pushing. I kept my jaw loose and my eyes calm. It felt like a drill I'd practiced in other rooms. Don't move the frame. Let the moment record itself. The MC tried to float a joke, then wisely let it die. The photographer cleared her throat and lifted the camera slightly. "Parents, please," she said. Professional and gentle. Brenda nodded to her side first, then gestured wider. "Whitcomb parents here," she instructed. She glanced at me and then past me. Her chin cut a small line toward the floor. Lily's eyes flicked to mine, then to the cake. She mouthed later, tiny and firm, like a stitch holding fabric. I nodded once and stayed still. Jason tugged his cuff and kept position beside her. The shutter clicked, and applause covered the static. I moved 2 steps back and put a glass on a passing tray. The air tasted like sugar and hotel coffee. Nora leaned in close and used only 3 words. "I heard it," she said. "I know," I answered, keeping volume low. "Let's breathe and watch," I added. She squeezed my wrist once and drifted. The band returned to a mid-tempo standard that softened edges. Mid-rooms are where small explosions are hidden best. I watch for staff, not allies. Staff tell the truth by how they glance and hold doors. Brenda resumed directing, comfort returning with the next instruction. "Grandparents next," she said briskly. Then siblings, then friends. Jason guided Lily's grandmother forward with careful respect. Lily kept her posture measured, smile steady enough for the frame. The photographer found everyone's light and avoided our corner. I respected that craft more than the staging. "Mr. Carver," the planner whispered, "would you like water?" "Please," I said, grateful for simple kindness. I stood near the busing station so I wouldn't be visible ballast. You can steady a room by stepping out of its center. During the father-daughter dance, I counted measures and watched shoes. Lily's grip on my shoulder matched our old waltz pace. "I'm okay," she said softly, eyes on my tie knot. "I know," I said. "Tonight belongs to you." We kept our feet small and our turns neat. "Thank you for not reacting," she added. "Not here. I'll react on paper," I answered. She swallowed a smile and nodded. "I figured," she said. The The song ended, and we separated cleanly. Applause rose and fell like a polite tide. Brenda approached with a champagne flute and camera smile. "Lovely," she said, eyes sliding over me to the band. "Let's move to bouquet toss in 10. Planner has the schedule," I replied, keeping tone even. Her gaze hardened, then smoothed. "Let's keep things on brand," she said, almost to herself. Jason rejoined Lily and checked her face for weather. She gave him clear sky and a soft, small nod. He relaxed by degrees, not all at once. People trained by pressure need gradual release, not orders. I stepped aside and thanked the drummer for the steady tempo. At the coffee station, a waiter misjudged the spigot and spilled a line. I grabbed napkins and pressed the edge, saving the tablecloth. "You're a hero," he whispered, grateful and young. "Just tidy," I said. The planner passed with her tablet and an expression that said, "I know." She didn't speak. She didn't need to. I tipped the server and returned to my post near the column. The room glowed again, surface smooth, structure unchanged. The sentence still lived inside the cake's spotlight, quiet and sharp. I carried it without letting it spill. When the band took a break, I found a quiet hallway. The mirror there showed a tie slightly crooked and eyes steady. I fixed the knot and checked my phone for nothing important. Nora joined me with 2 mints and an old-school look. "You're choosing later," she said. "Tomorrow morning," I replied, "with witnesses." She nodded once and smiled in a way that meant she'd sleep well. "Then enjoy the rest," she said. "No more heavy lifting." I pocketed the mint and returned to the ballroom. The lights warmed again, and the night finished like a rehearsed line. I drove home on quiet streets that felt washed after rain. The house held stillness like a safe holds air. I hung my jacket, loosened my tie, and set my phone face down. The kitchen clock ticked without opinions, which helped. I unlocked the office and turned on one lamp. Light on paper calms me faster than sleep. I opened the safe and lifted the blue binder labeled Estate. Tabs waited like calm traffic. I set a legal pad beside it and wrote the date. I spoke out loud to keep time honest. "Inventory first," I said, steady and plain. The binder started with a will I last updated 2 years ago. Primary beneficiary, Lily Carver, my daughter. Specific bequests, my father's watch, my wife's piano, and the Blue House. Contingent language named future grandchildren, if any, through a child's trust. A separate letter of wishes asked for modest services and no speeches. I checked account designations stored in a sleeve: IRA, brokerage, and life insurance. Beneficiary forms matched the plan but needed sharper edges. I listed items for precise edits. I kept going, page by page, until the categories aligned. Real property showed clean title and no liens. The shop I sold last spring still had a trailing earnout. I flagged that line with a yellow tab for clarity. Digital accounts got their own sheet with passwords in a sealed envelope. "Replace this soon," I said softly, noting the task. I reviewed powers of attorney and health directives, then signed a reminder to refresh witnesses. In a back pocket, I found 3 sympathy cards from years ago. I put them in a box marked personal and closed the lid. The plan was strong. The plan needed teeth. I outlined a living trust with specific conditions. First, a family trust for Lily with distribution by milestones, not moods. Second, an education trust for any future grandchildren, locked from adult vanity projects. Third, a charitable remainder fund feeding the library and vocational scholarships. Fourth, a clause about public respect for family members at family events. I read that line twice, then wrote it cleaner. "Respect is public, not private," I wrote. "Violations change distributions." It wasn't revenge. It was a railing on a stair. I brewed coffee and let the first steam clear the room. The house smelled like walnut, old books, and fresh grounds. I called my sister Nora because she knows my gears. "You working?" she asked. "Inventory and draft," I said. "Call Nadia at 8. "You sleeping?" she asked. "Later," I answered. "Paper first." "Good," she said. "Paper doesn't yell." We said goodnight, short and useful. I set the phone away from my hand again. Work needs distance from noise to stay clean. I wrote a cover letter for my attorney, Nadia, in crisp bullets. "Review existing will," I typed. "Draft revocable trust with conditional distributions." I added letter of intent with clear, calm examples. I listed assets by account and added the Blue House details. "Executor, keep Olivia from the shop as administrator," I noted. "She handles conflict without drama." I wrote instructions for copies, one sealed at the firm, one in my safe, one with Nora. I ended with a line I could read years from now. Goal: protect Lily's dignity and future, not punish anyone. I printed the asset list and stapled the beneficiaries on top. I clipped supporting papers with labeled tabs: property, accounts, insurance, and instructions. I slid everything into a red folder marked Action. On the pad, I wrote a short script for tomorrow. Calm tone, it read. Ask questions, accept edits, sign nothing rushed. I checked pens, checked IDs, and checked the safe again. I locked it and tugged the handle twice. The habit comes from construction days. Measure, verify, then move. I turned off the lamp and let the office return to dark. In the kitchen, I poured water and watched window glass cool. The night held steady, which matched the work. I imagined Lily reading a future letter written in plain words. I wanted her to hear calm, not anger, even on paper. I pictured Jason learning to stand without his mother's hand. Choices make adults. Ink only sets the frame. I washed the glass and left it upside down to dry. Then I lay down fully dressed and closed my eyes. I slept like a man who has a plan and a morning appointment. I reached Nadia's office just after they unlocked the door for clients. The lobby smelled like paper, ink, and lemon cleaner. A receptionist offered water and a clipboard, which I declined. "Everything's already in this folder," I said, holding the red one. Nadia stepped out with an easy smile and steady eyes. "Let's start in my conference room," she said. The room was small, quiet, and built for decisions. I placed the asset list on the table and sat straight. "I want structure without drama," I said. She nodded once, already reading the first page. Nadia skimmed my will, then opened the account designations. "Your base plan is sound," she said. "It needs a modern backbone." I waited while she marked places with blue tabs. "Move to a revocable living trust for probate avoidance," she continued. "Keep a short pour-over will for anything missed," I asked. One simple question to test the frame. "Can we tie distributions to public conduct at family events?" She paused, then answered carefully. "We can set conditions, but we enforce through trustee discretion." I nodded, because discretion beats slogans when tempers rise. She wrote trustee standards in neat block letters. We listed goals in plain language before touching any forms. "Protect Lily from pressure," I said first. "Keep future grandchildren safe from adult vanity." Nadia added, "Minimize probate delays, reduce conflict points, and make your wishes clear." I slid the hook event across the table, stripped of emotion. "There was a sentence last night that crossed a line," I said. "I want boundaries that do not yell." She underlined a heading: "Respect as a condition for participation." "We cannot punish speech," she said, "but we can guide incentives." "Incentives are fine," I replied. "I build with rails, not alarms." She drafted a trust skeleton while I checked each clause. "Trust name: Carver Family Trust," she said. "Settler and initial trustee: you." I agreed and added a successor list in order. "Successor trustee: Nora first, then Olivia," I said. "Both are calm under pressure." Nadia approved that sequence without hesitation. "Distribution standard to Lily: health, education, maintenance, and support," she read. "Plus milestone disbursements for housing and emergencies." I asked for a written trustee memo about public respect. "Phrase it like a fiduciary standard," I suggested. "Clear examples, no hashtags." She smiled and wrote, "Examples, not slogans." We moved through assets and funding like carpenters setting beams. Real estate: deed to the trust and record promptly. Accounts: change beneficiaries to the trust where useful. Retirement accounts: keep Lily as primary to preserve tax treatment. "We'll coordinate with your custodian," Nadia said. "Title changes take a week or two." Life insurance: make the trust the beneficiary for coordinated distribution. Brokerage: retitle to the trust and maintain your investment policy. "This keeps everything under one roof," she summarized. "Fewer entry points for arguments." I breathed easier, because roofs prevent more storms than speeches ever will. I raised the sensitive part without circling it. "What about Brenda?" I asked. "I want her nowhere near administration." Nadia answered with professional calm. "She has no standing in your plan," she said. "We will keep it that way." I nodded, then added one more line. "I will still be civil," I said. "Civil and firm." Nadia drafted a communication policy for trustees and beneficiaries. "Written notices only for disputes," she said. "No hallway negotiations." "Good," I replied. "Hallways breed legends." She outlined a gift clause for future grandchildren, tied to education and health. "No luxury vehicles," she added, half smiling. We discussed signing mechanics and the road after signatures. "2 witnesses and a notary today," Nadia said. "You'll sign will, trust, and powers." "I also need a letter of intent," I said. "Plain words for Lily." She produced a template and slid it over. "Speak like you tonight, not like a lawyer," she said. "I'll attach it as your guidance." I drafted slow, using short lines and steady verbs. Our family values public respect, I wrote. We protect each other in rooms with other people. Nadia reviewed it and nodded once. Good tone, she said, firm without theater. Nadia prepared a neutral notice for Jason and Brenda. Not required, but clarifies boundaries, she explained. The letter stated new trustee roles, distribution standards, and contact rules. It did not accuse. It simply described structure. I'll send this after recording property documents, she said. It reduces rumor loops. I asked about timelines. Funding begins this week, she said. Full implementation within 2 weeks. No rush emails, I added. Everything steady and logged. She agreed and printed signature packets. We scheduled a short witness slot in the firm's library. I checked my pen, then used hers instead. The witnesses arrived, signed, and stepped out without stories. The notary watched each page and stamped clean. Nadia handed me a binder with crisp tabs and a calm heft. This is your new frame, she said. Use it like a tool, not a threat. I will, I answered, meaning every word. She passed me a small checklist titled Funding Steps. Titles, beneficiaries, and letters, she said. Call me if anyone resists. I stood, shook her hand, and held her eyes a moment. Thank you for precision, I said. Precision keeps peace, she smiled. Precision wins quietly, she replied. Outside, the day felt orderly, like streets knew their lanes. I put the binder on the seat and buckled it with habit. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. How did it go? I typed back. Clean and careful. We'll talk tonight. I didn't text details. I kept the promise simple. At a red light, I listed tomorrow's tasks in my head. Bank appointments, custodian calls, and a calm letter to Jason. I drove home without music and let the quiet finish the morning. The plan felt built, not just written. Built things whole. I laid the binder open on my kitchen table and spread the funding checklist beside it. The work now was translation. Clear wishes into clear clauses. I started with a revocable trust article by article, making notes in the margins for Nadia to finalize. Keep verbs active, I wrote. Avoid adjectives. Plain language survives storms better than poetry. Article 1 named the trust and declared my capacity to amend. Article 2 identified assets scheduled to be retitled over the next 2 weeks. I listed the blue. House by parcel number, the brokerage by account suffix, and the insurance policy by certificate. Title transfers in sequence, I noted. No gaps. I drafted a memo for Lily explaining why we use a trust, privacy, speed, and fewer chances for arguments to gain oxygen. Distribution standards came next. Health, education, maintenance, and support, I read aloud, then added my rails. Education includes trade programs and certifications, not just degrees. I wrote, no luxury purchases from principal. I underlined no loans to friends because families collapse trying to be banks. For emergency distributions, I set a cap and a cooling-off period. Request in writing, I wrote. Wait 72 hours. If still needed, trustee decides. Delays save futures more often than they harm them. I added milestone gifts that reward steadiness, not optics. First-time home purchase, down payment assistance up to a ceiling, I wrote. Amount tied to local median, not fantasy. Medical emergencies, immediate approval with documentation. Career reset, 6 months of support once in a lifetime, with a plan. I paused and pictured Lily reading each line without pressure. This is a safety net, I said to the quiet room. It is not a trampoline. For future grandchildren, I drafted the education trust rules cleanly. Funds may be used for tuition, books, tools, exams, and verified childcare that enables a parent to attend classes. I wrote, no vehicles over a reasonable amount, no private jets, no retreats, no brand deals. I added an incentive clause. When a child completes a semester with passing marks or a trade certificate, a small bonus for supplies is permitted. I underlined, bonus is small. Money should encourage direction, not replace grit. The charitable remainder plan took 1 page and a steady hand. I listed 2 beneficiaries, the public library that saved me at 11, and a vocational scholarship at the technical college. Percentage split, 60-40, I wrote. Minimum annual distribution even in down markets. I attached a letter explaining why libraries matter when homes are loud and why trades feed families when slogans fade. I kept the letter factual. I left the sentiment on the cutting room floor. I chose trustees like I choose foremen, calm, honest, and allergic to theater. Successor trustee order, Nora, then Olivia, I wrote. I drafted a brief trustee compensation schedule so nobody had to guess later. Modest hourly, cap per month, reviewed annually. I set a power to hire professionals without begging for permission. Lawyers for documents, accountants for filings, counselors when grief turns people into versions they won't recognize. If a trustee needs help, I want help to appear quickly and quietly. Enforcement needed clarity without turning into a cudgel. I wrote a trustee memo called Public Respect Standard. It used examples, not slogans. Examples of acceptable conduct, speaking to family members with courtesy at gatherings, including elders in group photos when invited, addressing disagreements privately without scenes. Examples of violations, public insults to family in front of guests, exclusionary staging meant to humiliate, social media posts that degrade family members by name. The remedy was not a guillotine. Trustee may pause discretionary distributions for 90 days, then review. Repeated violations may reduce discretionary distributions for a year. Railings, not cliffs. Communication rules were simple. All notices in writing, no texting decisions, no back-channel negotiations at events. I added a cooling line. If a dispute arises, take one night before responding. People say fewer permanent things after they sleep. I included an apology door. Any beneficiary may cure a violation by issuing a specific apology to the person, and if the incident was public, to the same audience. Repair beats punishment when people are willing to try. Executor instructions for the pour-over were short and mechanical. Gather, list, secure, I wrote. Deposit strays into the trust. The executor's playbook fit on one page, with checkboxes for death certificates, safe deposit access, and a 3-call cadence. Attorney, accountant, and trustee. I detailed funeral preferences in a separate letter. Small, 40 minutes, no microphones. Read a piece from the library that helped me learn how to think. I drafted neutral notices for Jason and Brenda. The letters explained that the trust now existed, that Lily remained primary, and that distributions followed clear standards managed by trustees. There were no accusations and no speeches. This is not a punishment, I wrote. This is a frame. Frames keep pictures from sliding off walls when floors shake. I asked Nadia to send them from her office, so tone arrived wrapped in procedure, not memory. By early afternoon, I had piles that made sense. Signatures, funding changes, letters, and one sealed envelope for Lily titled, Read When Calm. I called the bank to schedule beneficiary updates and the county to confirm deed recording hours. Bring ID and patience, the clerk said. We have a line tomorrow morning. Patience is fine, I replied. I'm building for decades, not days. I texted Lily a single sentence. Dinner at my place tomorrow, just us. She answered, yes, then sent a small heart. I turned to the last page and wrote a private line to myself. If you are reading this years from now, remember, you didn't build a trap. You built a bridge with guardrails. I closed the binder and felt the room settle. The plan had edges now. Edges protect. The courier arrived at 9 the next morning. Uniform pressed and clipboard ready. He waited by my porch as I signed 3 envelopes. One for Brenda, one for Jason, one for Lily. Each carried a cover. Letter from Nadia's office with my signature below hers. Deliver all 3 today. Signatures required, I said. He nodded, checked the addresses twice, and drove off. The sound of his van leaving felt like a page turning. I made coffee and opened the window for air. The binder sat where I left it, a quiet weight of logic. At 10, my phone buzzed. Delivery confirmed for Brenda's address, signed by her housekeeper. Jason's confirmation arrived minutes later. Lily's came last, signed by her own hand. 3 acknowledgments. No noise yet. I sent a short text to Nadia. All delivered. She replied, excellent. Expect contact soon. I smiled without humor. Contact was certain. Calm was optional. Lily called first. Dad, a man just dropped off documents, she said. Voice small but steady. Yes, I said. You'll see a cover letter from Nadia. Read that first. Am I supposed to worry? She asked. No, I answered. You're supposed to understand. Jason's mom just called him, she said quietly. She's upset. That's her right, I replied. My right is clarity. There was a pause. Then she said, I love you, Dad. I know, I said. That's why this exists. By noon, Jason called from his office. Ethan, I just got the documents, he said. Voice clipped. I want to make sure I understand. Ask, I said. It says Lily's primary, but there's something about discretionary distributions and conduct standards, he said. Correct, I replied. They're guidelines for respect, nothing more. He exhaled audibly. I don't know what to say to my mother. Try, Mom. This isn't about you, I said. He gave a strained laugh. That might start a fire. Then say nothing until the air's clear, I replied. Silence can be a sprinkler. Brenda's number appeared next, as expected. I let it ring twice, then answered. Ethan, she said, clipped and formal. I received your letter. Good, I said. You've read it? Yes, she said. And I have thoughts. Keep them, I replied. You may share them with Nadia, who drafted the documents. You're excluding me from family matters, she said. I'm excluding hostility from legal matters, I corrected. Silence stretched on the line. I never meant, she began. Intent doesn't erase impact, I said calmly. What you said was clear. My response is structured, not emotional. This is extreme, she said finally. Boundaries usually feel that way, I answered. At 1, I met Nora for lunch at the diner near the courthouse. She stirred her coffee and studied my face. How's the storm? She asked. Still gathering, I said. But the roof's solid. She nodded approvingly. Any regrets? Not yet, I said. Maybe none later. She smiled. Then it's working. The waitress topped our cups and they asked about pie. No thanks, I said. I'm keeping sugar for company. We laughed softly, a sound that fit the quiet day. By mid-afternoon, Nadia forwarded 2 voicemails from Brenda left on the firm's line. The transcript read clean, but offensive. I want to clarify that I never intended disrespect. Surely this can be adjusted. Nadia added a note. No need to respond. We'll archive. I replied. Archive everything. The system timestamped the message and closed the file. Procedure replaces adrenaline. That's why it works. At 5, Lily arrived with a small grocery bag. I brought dinner, she said, setting it down. Lasagna, like Mom used to make. I smiled and set 2 plates. We ate quietly until she asked, Do you hate her? No, I said. I don't hate people who show me blueprints. Blueprints? She repeated. For boundaries, I said. Her sentence gave me measurements. Lily nodded slowly, chewing, thinking. You're not angry? Anger wastes ink, I said. I prefer signatures. She pulled the letter from her bag and placed it on the table. This says you created a trust, she said. That means I don't inherit directly? Correct, I said. You benefit consistently, not suddenly. She smiled faintly. That sounds like you? It's built for calm, I said. Not for show. Jason's confused, she said. His mom thinks you're punishing her. I'm protecting you, I replied. She doesn't have to approve. What if she apologizes? She asked softly. Then it'll be noted, I said. But the paper stays. After dinner, Lily washed dishes while I wiped counters. I read the respect clause, she said. It's clear. Good, I said. Clarity saves blood pressure. She smiled. You really wrote examples? Of course, I said. People argue over definitions. I prefer lists. Jason said it's fair, she added. He also said it's intense. Fairness feels intense to people used to leeway, I replied. She dried the last glass and placed it upside down. Mom would have approved, she said quietly. She liked structure. She liked peace, I said. Structure just made it possible. As she left, she paused at the door. You know, she said. That sentence, she said. You're not family. It hurt more than I showed. That's why I didn't speak, I said. You needed your moment, not my defense. Thank you, she said. For the will too? She asked, half teasing. For building a map, I said, so no one gets lost next time. She hugged me once, short and tight, then walked to her car. I watched her taillights fade, steady and red. The night folded back into calm. Inside, I poured tea and opened the binder again. I wrote one more line in the trustee memo. Paper ends arguments that words can't. I filed it behind the respect clause and closed the cover. The phone stayed quiet for the rest of the evening. Sometimes silence means progress. Sometimes it just means people are reading. Sunday brunch turned into a court of opinion before the coffee even cooled. Brenda had booked the conservatory at a country club, just to clear the air. When I arrived, she was already seated with Jason and Lily, her napkin folded into a perfect triangle. Ethan, she said, smiling like a headline. Join us. Let's be civil. I sat, placed my phone face down, and waited. The waiter poured coffee and left quickly, sensing the temperature wasn't from the food. Brenda began before anyone else breathed. This paperwork you sent has created confusion, she said. People are talking as if we're in some legal feud. We're not, I said. It's structure, not feud. Jason rubbed his temples. Mom, it's done. It's legal. Let's not make a spectacle. Brenda ignored him. You could have called me first, she pressed. We're family now. I looked at her calmly. Last week you said the opposite. I prefer clarity before connection. She flinched just once, then recovered. It was a misunderstanding, she said. Nerves, the wedding, everything. Words matter most when nerves are high, I replied. That's when they show the floor plan. Lily placed a hand on Jason's wrist. Mom, he's right, she said softly. It wasn't nerves, it was tone. The waiter returned with plates. Silence followed, broken only by the sound of silverware. Brenda tried a new tactic, polished and gentle. This trust, she said carefully. It makes it look like you don't trust us. It makes it look like I trust rules, I said. Rules protect everyone. Jason looked at me, then at his coffee. He's right, Mom. We were lucky he thought ahead. Brenda laughed once, sharp. You're defending this? I'm defending peace, Jason said quietly. Brenda turned to Lily. And you? You're fine being managed by paperwork? Lily set her fork down. I'm fine being protected from chaos. That stopped the table for a full breath. Brenda's mouth opened, then closed. Paper doesn't love you, she finally said. Neither does gossip, I answered. But both can do damage if left loose. The manager of the club passed by with a polite nod. We all pretended to smile until he left. Brenda's posture softened slightly. Maybe I was harsh, she said. But families shouldn't need legal fences. Good families build them before someone falls, I replied. We just learned late. Jason nodded. Late's better than never. Brenda sighed, folded her napkin twice, and placed it down. So, what happens now? She asked. Nothing dramatic, I said. Life continues. The trust exists. Respect earns flexibility. That's all. She studied me. And, if I apologize publicly, it will be noted, I said. Not reversed. That sounds final. It sounds stable, I replied. Lily leaned forward, voice calm but clear. Mom, this isn't punishment, she said. It's peace insurance. Brenda looked between us, seeing that votes were counted. You're all very composed, she said bitterly. Practice, I said. Construction sites teach it faster than therapists. That earned a reluctant smile from Jason. When the check arrived, I paid it before anyone reached for a wallet. I invited myself, I said. I'll settle it. Brenda didn't argue this time. She stood, gathering her purse with measured grace. For what it's worth, she said. I do want peace. Then live by it, I said. Paper or not. Outside, Lily hugged her mother briefly. Brenda held on longer than she should have, then let go. You built walls, she murmured. No, Lily said softly. He built doors that lock from both sides. Jason walked with me to the parking lot. She'll stew, he said. Let her, I replied. Stewing softens meat. He laughed quietly. You're something, Ethan. Just consistent, I said. When I got home, the house smelled like old coffee and cedar. I made a note in my ledger. Brunch. Verbal acknowledgement of structure. No escalation. I filed it under completed conversations. Then I closed the book. Stability doesn't always look friendly. Sometimes it just looks finished. I arrived at their apartment with a folder and no speeches prepared. Lily cleared the table and set 3 glasses of water without ceremony. Jason closed the balcony door to keep neighbors' music from coloring decision. I placed a single page beside the folder and waited for quiet. This is a draft for us, I said, not for lawyers. Lily nodded once, eyes steady, hands folded so they would not fidget. Jason glanced at the page and then looked directly at me. We want clarity, he said. We also want room to breathe. Clarity makes breathing easier, I answered. Let's build that first. The room felt small, which helped words stay focused and honest. The page held 4 headings, each short enough to memorize quickly. I pointed to the first. Public respect is non-negotiable at family events. Say hard things privately, I said. Say necessary truths without an audience. Jason nodded slowly, then tested it with one exact example. If a problem appears at dinner, he asked, we pause and table it? Yes, I said. We protect the room before fixing the problem. Lily exhaled and touched the rim of her glass once. Apologies should match the scale of harm, she said, voice steady. Correct, I answered. Private harm, private repair. Public harm, public repair. They both agreed without reaching for their phones or any extra word. The second, the heading read, no proxy communication through parents or friends. Direct messages only, I said. No relays, no pressure triangles, no spin. Jason smiled because the rule cut 3 future arguments in half. I'll tell my mother kindly, he said, but I'll tell her clearly. Lily nodded and added a small, useful practice for herself. I'll write before calling when I'm heated, she said. Short lines. Good, I said. Written words slow down bad instincts reliably. I slid a pen forward and marked a small checkbox beside it. Check marks are promises, I added, not decorations for later. Both of them checked the box without making a show of it. The third heading read, holidays and milestones use rotating leadership. Whoever leads sets the plan, budget, and guest boundaries in writing, I said. No last-minute additions without unanimous agreement by the 3 of us. Jason leaned forward, considering the calendar taped inside his head. Thanksgiving with my side this year, he said. Christmas with yours. And alternating years thereafter, I added. Saves everyone from yearly negotiations. Lily laughed lightly because math finally replaced emotion in December. We'll post the plan on the fridge, she said. House rule. Post it near the grocery list, I said. Respect needs visibility. They both smiled because simple systems survive loud days most reliably. The 4th heading read, consequences are railings, not cliffs. First lapse gets a pause, I said. Second, extends the pause with review. Third, triggers limited access to discretionary help for a season, I continued calmly. Jason winced, then relaxed when he saw the next sentence waiting. Cure is always available through specific apology and demonstrated change. No punishments for sport, I said. Only protection for the room. Lily studied the line and spoke with measured relief in her tone. This gives us leverage without turning us cruel, she said quietly. It gives you spine, I answered. Cruelty remains off the table. They initialed the margin because initials become anchors during windy weeks. We added one practice for money because money confuses otherwise decent people. Requests travel by email with receipts and clear purpose, I said. No same-day decisions unless someone's bleeding or the roof leaks. Jason nodded, thinking about budgets and the feeling of steady ground. 72 hours makes most fires look smaller, he said. Exactly, I replied. Time turns sparks into data we can handle. Lily asked about future children and baby naming ceremonies. Same rules, I said. Gentle rooms, short speeches, phones mostly down. They both smiled because future rooms sounded peaceful rather than staged. We signed the page as a family note, not a contract. I stood to leave and kept my last lines short and useful. I won't manage your marriage, I said. I'll defend its boundaries. Jason shook my hand with a steadier grip than last week. I'll speak to my mother tonight, he said. Plain and kind. Lily walked me to the door and held it a moment longer. I feel like we finally named the furniture, she said. Rooms stay safer when furniture has names, I answered. She smiled, then tucked the page under a magnet shaped like Idaho. Next time, she said, we'll meet for dinner, not decisions. Good, I said. Decisions work better when they're already built. I arrived at Nadia's office early with the binder and a calm list. The receptionist directed me to the library where witnesses usually wait. Sunlight fell across 2 long tables covered with thick law books. Nadia entered with a neat stack of signature tabs and a notary. We'll do will, trust, powers, then letters, she said. Matter of fact, I reviewed each page aloud so my brain stayed honest throughout. Name correct, address correct, trustee sequence correct, I read steadily. Nadia nodded and placed the first document squarely before me. The notary positioned her stamp and watched my hand for hesitation. I signed smoothly, using the same pen for every single page. The witnesses took turns, quiet and practiced from many mornings. They signed in the correct lines and printed names clearly. No stories, no nervous jokes, no heavy breath between pages. The notary sealed each packet and slid it into a sleeve. Nadia checked the estate schedule against the funding checklist again. Deed will record today, she said. Custodian changes start tomorrow. We reviewed the trustee memo about public respect and remedies. Examples are clear, she said. Measured, not punitive. I initialed the memo and placed it behind Article 6. The frame felt complete, rails aligned, doors opened and locked cleanly. Lily arrived 10 minutes later with Jason, both dressed plainly. Nadia greeted them like a teacher who respects prepared students. We will record a short memo of understanding for clarity, she said. It states you've read the distribution standards and communication rules. Lily read first and signed with steady hands and slow breathing. Jason followed, pausing at the apology door and nodding once. That line matters, he said softly. Repair should always stay possible. It keeps dignity alive, I answered, even after hard moments. Nadia placed copies in a slim couple's folder for them. Call me with questions, she said, preferably before holidays. As we prepared to leave, Brenda appeared in the doorway, composed. She wore controlled colors and a smile engineered for public rooms. I'm here to understand exactly what you've built, she said evenly. Nadia stepped forward first, calm as a level on fresh concrete. Mrs. Whitcomb, this is a private client meeting, she said. Brief only. Brenda glanced at Lily, then at me, then squared her shoulders. I received letters and wished to avoid future confusion, she said. Then read the letters, I replied. They were written for that. She exhaled, then looked toward the binder on the table. That document excludes me, she said. Is that your intention? It excludes non-parties from administration, Nadia answered, not smiling. Beneficiaries and trustees handle matters per the written plan. Brenda's eyes moved from Nadia to me, steady but strained. I spoke poorly at the reception, she said. I admit that. I am not here to relitigate sentences, I replied, calm. I am here to prevent repeats in rooms that hold family. She swallowed and tried the angle that usually worked for her. People will say you overreacted, she warned. They'll take my side. People can read, I said. If they ask, I'll show timelines, Nadia added. We will not argue in hallways or by phone. Jason stepped closer to his mother and kept his voice simple. Mom, the plan protects us, he said. It protects you too. Brenda blinked, surprised to hear a clear sentence from him. It prevents emergencies from becoming spectacles, he continued. We need that. Lily spoke next, measured and polite, but not apologizing. I'm supported through this structure, she said, not controlled by it. Brenda glanced between them, seeing lines she hadn't drawn herself. Will I be notified of births and milestones? She asked. Yes, I said. By us, not through paperwork or rumor. Her posture lowered half an inch, then steadied again carefully. Nadia offered Brenda a printed copy of the communication policy. Written notices for disputes, cooling time before replies, she summarized. Brenda took it and held it like a foreign measuring tool. I don't like needing this much paper, she said bluntly. I don't like mops, I said. I still buy them. The notary almost smiled. Then the room found its breath again. Brenda folded the policy and placed it into her purse. I will try to meet the room better next time, she said. Try with actions, I answered. Rooms notice deeds faster. She nodded once, then stepped back toward the corridor quietly. Nadia closed the meeting with a short, useful recap. Documents signed, witnesses recorded, deed filing underway, copies distributed, she said. Funding steps begin tomorrow, and letters remain our primary channel. I shook her hand and thanked the witnesses by name. Lily tucked her folder into a tote and stood taller. Jason placed his hand on her shoulder, small and steady. We walked together to the elevator without performing relief. Brenda lingered by the window, thinking, not crafting a pose. Outside, sunlight made the sidewalk look newly washed and level. Built things held, and we stepped into the day accordingly. At the curb, Jason asked one last necessary question. What happens if we actually stumble and break one rule? Then you repair, I said. Specifically, and where it happened. He breathed out, like someone finally trusting a harness. We can live with that, he said. We can work with that. Lily nodded and looked at me with quiet gratitude. Dinner this week? She asked. Stew and a short walk. Yes, I said. Short walks keep houses standing in storms. They left together, talking low, not checking their phones. I went home with a binder that felt like a level. The week after signing day felt like a house settling after rain. I returned tools to drawers and let the binder rest. Lily texted recipes and asked about Saturday walks like before. Jason called twice to confirm holiday plans in plain, steady lines. Brenda sent a brief email that said, I understand the policy. Nadia forwarded vendor confirmations and deed filings without commentary or color. I updated my ledger and closed each task with one checkmark. Quiet doors replaced revolving ones, which made rooms feel larger. Stability doesn't cheer. It simply shows up and stays. At dinner, Lily served stew and set her phone aside. How's the funding list? She asked, passing bread and a small smile. On schedule, I said. Titles, beneficiaries, and letters all moving. Jason poured water and kept conversation tidy and real. I told Mom we won't use her as a relay, he said. She didn't love it, but she heard it. Lily squeezed his hand once under the table. We'll keep the room clean, she said, voice calm and sure. I nodded, because clean rooms teach people faster than lectures. We ate, then walked, and nobody performed kindness for cameras. Brenda invited us to Sunday coffee, and we chose a public place. She arrived on time, wearing less armor and more attention. I read everything twice, she said, placing her hands flat. The examples helped more than the slogan. I kept answers brief and exact, because brevity prevents sparks. Examples are promises, I said. They stop arguments before they start. Jason added one line that landed correctly. We're protecting the wedding photos from becoming the story, he said. Brenda looked down, then up, and met Lily's eyes directly. I'm sorry, she said, measured and clear. In public, for public words. The room absorbed it without applause, which made it stronger. At the library fundraiser, I wrote a quiet check and left quickly. A volunteer asked about legacy gifts, and I smiled at the term. Books kept me fed, I said. I'm paying the tab. She laughed, then gave me a pen that didn't skip. Later, I toured the technical college shop and watched students cut steel straight. Sparks leaped and died exactly where they should. The instructor said, we teach patience first, then skill. I nodded because that's how structures win without shouting. I left thinking about grandchildren who might choose wrenches over brochures. Either path could be funded, just not the noise around it. Holidays arrived on the new rotation and kept their shape. Lily led Thanksgiving with a clear budget and a printed plan. Jason managed dishes like a foreman with a good crew. Brenda asked where to stand for photos and didn't stage the room. We took one group picture and left the rest to memory. After dinner, we wrote notes for next year in short lines. More chairs, fewer desserts, earlier coffee, Lily dictated, smiling. I added, Keep speeches under 30 seconds, which earned a laugh. Nobody argued, because arguments had nowhere to sit anymore. Guardrails had quietly replaced cliffs. Months later, a small scare tested our rails without breaking them. Jason lost a client and called me after writing first. "Can we request a 3-month bridge?" he asked, voice steady. "We'll show receipts and a plan." I called Nora as trustee and recused myself from decisions. She reviewed the email and approved under the rules we wrote. Jason sent a detailed thank you and copied Lily's file. No one whispered about help because the policy covered the ground. Relief arrived like a properly hung door, silent, straight, and reliable. We kept walking forward with the hinges oiled. On a quiet evening, I stood by my safe and listened. The house felt aligned, like joists finely braced in the right places. I opened the binder, checked the calendar tab, and closed it again. Built things don't need attention every hour. They need respect. I made tea, watched the steam lift, and thought about the cake. Some sentences carve lines you can't sand out, and that's fine. The fix isn't rage, it's measurements and follow-through. We didn't win a spectacle. We won a structure. The family didn't shrink. It became honest. If this story's steady approach to respect and boundaries made sense to you, give it a like, share your thoughts or similar experiences in the comments, and subscribe for more calm, true-to-life stories about dignity and accountability.